Imagine sitting behind the wheel thinking you know every rule on the road, only to realize that laws you assumed were set in stone have suddenly shifted. In 2026, drivers across the United States are facing sweeping changes that could lead to unexpected fines, points on your license, or even more serious penalties. And here's the kicker. Most motorists won't even notice these changes until it's too late. But here's the question. Which of these new rules is the one that could hit you the hardest, and are you truly prepared to adjust your driving habits in time? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. To understand the implications of these new laws, we first need to examine the broader context of traffic legislation. Traffic laws in the U.S. are primarily governed at the state level. Each state enforces speed limits, licensing requirements, and rules of the road, but federal guidelines influence certain aspects like vehicle safety standards and cross-state regulations. Over the past decade, lawmakers have increasingly focused on modern issues: distracted driving, emissions compliance, autonomous vehicle integration, and the evolving risks posed by ride-sharing and electric scooters. According to official records, the legislative sessions of 2025 in California, New York, Texas, and several other states included over 100 bills targeting road safety, licensing, and penalties. These legislative changes are informed by data. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA, reported a notable increase in accidents related to driver distraction and outdated licensing procedures, particularly among drivers over 65 and commercial operators. The 2026 law changes can be broadly grouped into 10 critical categories. Each category reflects a unique focus on safety, accountability, and modernization of enforcement. First, speed enforcement mechanisms are being updated. Several states are expanding the use of automated speed cameras in school zones, construction areas, and high-incident corridors. The NHTSA emphasizes that automated enforcement has been shown to reduce average speeds and prevent collisions, but it also raises questions about fines for minor infractions and the accuracy of equipment calibration. Second, distracted driving laws are tightening. Texting while driving is already prohibited in all 50 states, but new regulations extend this to include certain handheld devices used for navigation, streaming, or gaming. Violations can now result in higher fines, points, and mandatory driving courses, reflecting a zero-tolerance approach toward preventable distractions. The third change, the one most drivers are missing, concerns seatbelt enforcement and vehicle occupancy regulations. Several states now require seatbelts for all passengers, including rear seat occupants, with fines escalating significantly for violations. Additionally, child restraint rules have been updated to include booster seats for older children based on height rather than age, creating confusion for families unaware of the change. One interpretation of these changes is straightforward compliance. Adjust your habits and avoid fines. Another perspective considers the broader legal implications. Enforcement officers may issue citations for violations that were previously overlooked, and court disputes over penalties are expected to increase, particularly in cases involving automated cameras or ambiguous vehicle occupancy rules. Fourth, licensing requirements are evolving. Some states are introducing mandatory online training modules for license renewal, while others are implementing stricter vision, reaction, and cognitive assessments for drivers over 65. These measures aim to reduce age-related accidents, but may surprise older drivers who have not kept up with the latest requirements. Fifth, commercial driving regulations are being overhauled. Trucking companies and rideshare operators must now comply with updated electronic logging, vehicle inspections, and safety protocols. Non-compliance could result in large fines or temporary suspension of operating licenses. Sixth, environmental compliance is becoming a factor in enforcement. Several states have passed emissions inspection mandates for certain vehicle classes, and failure to comply may prevent registration renewal. These laws reflect the increasing integration of environmental policy into traffic enforcement. Seventh, penalties for reckless driving, including aggressive lane changes and tailgating, have been revised. Fines are higher, and repeat offenders may face license suspensions. Legal experts suggest that the combination of aggressive driving penalties with automated enforcement could result in significantly more citations. Eighth, insurance implications are intertwined with these law changes. Insurers are now required to factor in infractions detected through automated means and may adjust premiums based on violations that previously carried minimal risk. Drivers unaware of these updates could face unexpected increases in insurance costs. Ninth, integration of autonomous and semi-autonomous vehicles into traffic law is creating uncertainty. States are defining the legal responsibilities of operators in vehicles with advanced driver assistance systems, ADAS. Questions remain about liability and accidents, proper use of features like adaptive cruise control, and interaction with traditional enforcement measures. Finally, 10th, penalties for DUI and driving under the influence of new substances, including cannabis, are being recalibrated. States are establishing stricter blood concentration limits, revised testing protocols, and increased mandatory penalties for repeat offenders. This reflects a shift towards zero tolerance for impaired driving. Here's my personal insight. While some drivers may perceive these changes as bureaucratic overreach, they are fundamentally aimed at safety. Ignorance of the law is no excuse, and in many cases, failure to adapt could result in serious financial and legal consequences. So, how should drivers respond? First, review your state's DMV updates and legislative changes carefully. Second, ensure all vehicle safety checks, registrations, and licenses are current. Third, adopt defensive driving habits that align with the newest regulations. Finally, monitor insurance communications for policy updates that reflect law changes. And one more suspenseful question for you. Which of these 10 changes will impact the largest number of drivers in 2026, and which could lead to unexpected fines for you personally? Comment below with your prediction and experiences. In Part 2, we'll explore specific case studies, real-world enforcement examples, and scenarios where drivers were caught unaware by these new laws. We'll break down citations, analyze legal defenses, and provide actionable advice to avoid fines, all while explaining the underlying legislative reasoning and constitutional implications. Let's begin with case studies from several states where the new laws have already been piloted or enacted early. In California, automated speed enforcement cameras in school zones caught hundreds of drivers exceeding limits by less than 5 miles per hour. Many of these drivers were unaware that the threshold for enforcement had been lowered. The result? Notices of violation and fines ranging from $150 to $300, plus points on their licenses. According to the California DMV, first-time offenders in such zones have the option for online traffic school to reduce points, but repeat violations are processed without leniency. In Texas, the updated distracted driving statutes created confusion among rideshare drivers. A driver using a mounted GPS system for navigation received a citation because the new law interprets some handheld interactions as active use. Legal experts, including attorneys familiar with Texas traffic law, suggest that drivers now need to ensure all devices are either voice-controlled or fully hands-free. This law underscores how subtle changes can have significant consequences. New York introduced updated seatbelt requirements for rear seat passengers. During early enforcement, police issued citations to several adult passengers over 18 who were previously exempt. Legal analysts emphasize that this is not about penalizing adults arbitrarily. It's about uniform safety standards. The state's legislative records note that rear seat fatalities dropped significantly in states with full seatbelt compliance, which provided the primary motivation for the change. Now let's examine licensing changes, particularly for drivers over 65. States like Florida and Arizona now require cognitive and reaction time assessments every 5 years for older drivers. Imagine a senior driver who's been driving safely for decades, suddenly asked to complete an online course and reaction test to renew a license. While this may feel burdensome, it is intended to prevent accidents and ensure driver competency, as cognitive decline can affect reaction time and decision-making on the road. From my perspective, it's a balancing act, public safety versus perceived inconvenience, and drivers should approach this proactively rather than reactively. Commercial driving changes also carry real consequences. Companies operating fleets are now required to maintain electronic logs meticulously, and failing to do so can result in substantial fines. For example, trucking companies in Pennsylvania faced penalties exceeding $10,000 for incomplete logs. Rideshare platforms must now comply with background check expansions and vehicle safety inspections. These measures emphasize the legal accountability of professional drivers, highlighting the importance of compliance at every operational level. Environmental compliance laws also have practical implications. In California, emissions testing is now stricter for vehicles over 7 years old. Failure to meet requirements can result in blocked registration renewal. This affects not only the individual driver, but also fleet operators, delivery services, and small businesses that rely on older vehicles. From an educational standpoint, being proactive, scheduling inspections early, and ensuring modifications are compliant can prevent legal headaches and fines. Aggressive driving penalties have seen an overhaul in states like Nevada and Illinois. If a driver tailgates, changes lanes recklessly, or fails to yield appropriately, fines have doubled and points are applied immediately. Some counties have implemented mandatory defensive driving classes after 3 infractions within a 12-month period. In my opinion, these changes reflect an important trend. Law enforcement is moving from reactive punishment to proactive behavior modification. Drivers who adopt defensive and mindful driving habits will see both safety benefits and financial savings. Insurance consequences are another critical aspect. Many insurance providers now integrate data from automated enforcement and new traffic monitoring systems. A minor violation that might have been overlooked in the past could now result in premium increases. Drivers should review their policies carefully, ensuring they understand how new fines, points, and traffic incidents will impact costs. Knowledge here is empowerment. The integration of autonomous vehicles introduces a new layer of complexity. Laws governing semi-autonomous systems require operators to remain fully attentive, and failure to comply can result in citations equivalent to distracted driving. Experts note that liability in accidents involving semi-autonomous vehicles is evolving rapidly. Drivers must stay informed about system limitations and legal responsibilities. Ignorance is no defense. Finally, DUI laws, particularly regarding cannabis and other controlled substances, have been refined in several states. Blood concentration thresholds are stricter, and enforcement is expanding to include roadside impairment assessments. Violations now carry heavier fines, mandatory classes, and in some cases, temporary license suspension. The takeaway here is clear. Even if an individual is legally permitted to consume, operating a vehicle while impaired is increasingly non-negotiable in the eyes of the law. Now, let me provide some practical advice from my professional perspective. First, stay informed. These law changes are often nuanced and vary by state. Check your DMV or official legislative websites regularly. Second, adapt your driving habits. Even small adjustments, such as using hands-free navigation, ensuring all passengers wear seat belts, or avoiding minor speeding infractions, can prevent costly penalties. Third, maintain your vehicles properly. Environmental compliance, safety inspections, and functional signaling systems are not optional. They are now legally enforced. Fourth, document your awareness. Keep records of training, license renewals, and vehicle compliance, especially if you operate commercially. This can serve as evidence of good faith in any dispute or inspection. Fifth, embrace technology responsibly. While ADAS and semi-autonomous systems are convenient, they do not replace human responsibility behind the wheel. Understanding how to operate these features safely is essential to avoid violations. Ultimately, the 2026 driving law changes emphasize a single principle: knowledge is power. Drivers who remain informed, compliant, and proactive will navigate these changes smoothly, while those who ignore them may face unexpected fines or legal complications. Before we conclude, here's one final question for you. Which of these 10 critical law changes do you think will have the biggest impact on drivers nationwide, and which one could personally cost you the most if ignored? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments. Your insights could help other drivers avoid mistakes. If you found this breakdown helpful, subscribe for more legal and traffic law updates. Hit the notification bell to stay informed on future legislative changes, fines, and road safety developments. Because in 2026, knowledge behind the wheel isn't just convenience, it's protection. A routine drive can feel ordinary. The hum of tires on asphalt, the rhythm of stoplights, the familiar flow of traffic. But in 2026, drivers across the United States face a reality where routine has changed. Fines, new restrictions, updated licensing rules. Every move on the road carries consequences that could hit harder than ever before. But here's the question. Which of these changes will affect your daily commute most, and how can you protect yourself? Let me know your answer in the comments below. To understand these law changes, let's start with the foundation. Across states, legislatures are updating traffic laws for safety, efficiency, and public welfare. Many changes stem from data-driven insights, statistics on speeding, distracted driving, DUI incidents, and vehicle safety compliance. Understanding the reasoning behind these laws helps drivers navigate them more effectively. In California, automated enforcement cameras now have stricter thresholds, particularly in school zones. Even small infractions can trigger citations, as first-time offenders discover through fines and points on their license. These minor violations, once overlooked, now carry consequences designed to protect the most vulnerable road users: children, pedestrians, and cyclists. In Texas, distracted driving rules have expanded to include almost any handheld interaction with a device. This has caught some rideshare and delivery drivers off guard. Legal advice emphasizes full compliance. Devices must be mounted and voice-controlled, not touched manually. Ignoring this could result in citations and insurance implications. New York implemented stricter seatbelt enforcement for adults in the rear seat. This law might seem minor, but historical data shows rear seat fatalities drop significantly when seatbelts are universally applied. Here, safety meets enforcement, demonstrating how small behavioral adjustments prevent harm. Licensing updates are especially significant for drivers over 65. Several states now require cognitive and reaction assessments for license renewal. While initially intimidating for seniors accustomed to decades of safe driving, these assessments ensure the road remains safe for all users. From my perspective, it's a necessary precaution, but it also highlights the need for early preparation rather than reactive compliance. Commercial drivers also face heightened accountability. Fleet operators are now responsible for electronic log accuracy, vehicle safety compliance, and driver monitoring. Companies that fail to meet standards face substantial fines. The emphasis is clear: regulatory responsibility and road safety go hand in hand. Environmental compliance is no longer optional. Older vehicles must pass stricter emissions testing, particularly in states like California. Those who ignore these regulations risk blocked registrations and hefty penalties. Proactive inspection and maintenance are now legal necessities, not merely recommendations. Aggressive driving penalties have doubled in some states. Tailgating, unsafe lane changes, and failure to yield are no longer minor infractions. Repeat offenders face mandatory defensive driving courses, reflecting a shift from reactive punishment to behavior modification. My professional commentary: this is where law and psychology intersect. Incentivizing safer driving habits saves lives. Insurance is impacted too. Automated enforcement data now informs premiums. Even minor violations can result in cost increases. Drivers must review policies carefully, anticipate consequences, and take preventive measures. This is an area where knowledge truly equals power. Semi-autonomous vehicles introduce new legal dimensions. While convenient, operators are legally required to remain attentive at all times. Failure to do so equates to distracted driving. Liability is evolving, and drivers must be educated about both technology and their legal obligations. Finally, DUI laws, especially regarding cannabis, are stricter than ever. Blood concentration limits are lower, roadside assessments are expanded, and penalties heavier. The lesson is clear: even legally permissible consumption does not grant carte blanche on the road. Enforcement is strict and consequences severe. Now let's consider a realistic scenario. A driver unaware of the new California seatbelt rule or distracted driving expansion gets pulled over. The law is clear. Evidence is documented. Fines are issued. If the driver challenges it, legal remedies exist. But preparation is key. Document compliance, understand laws, and avoid surprises. Here's my professional takeaway. 2026 is the year knowledge, preparation, and proactive driving behavior define both safety and financial outcomes. The laws are not arbitrary. They are designed to mitigate risk, improve public safety, and reduce preventable accidents. Drivers who adapt will navigate these changes smoothly, while those who ignore them may face unexpected consequences. Before we close, here's one final thought for audience engagement. Which of the 10 law changes in 2026 do you think will impact you most? And how will you adjust your driving behavior to stay compliant? Share your experiences in the comments. Your insights can help other drivers avoid costly mistakes. If you found this educational breakdown useful, subscribe for more in-depth traffic law updates, road safety insights, and legislative changes. Hit the notification bell so you never miss crucial updates that could impact your driving, your license, or your wallet. Because in 2026, driving isn't just about getting from point A to B. It's about being informed, responsible, and proactive. Knowledge behind the wheel is protection, and compliance is empowerment.